Even if you move ahead with Scopus or any one database, then also it is fine, because Scopus is more exhaustive, and we are saying we are only proceeding with the reliable articles and reliable studies only. So this is just to cross check. Now, if you take a look, these are the checklists which you have to question yourself. Have I used complex search statements which can be used by individual databases? Can there be any improvement? Or you think that the keywords which have been repeatedly used by the authors in the previous researches, they are you have utilized them? Do you think that you have identified all the relevant references which can be included? And do you think that it is a full bibliographic database which you have used? All these are questions which are not to be mentioned in your article, but it is for your cross check that you have taken care of all the necessary and the relevant literature which will be helpful in your review. Now, just to mention, you review your research from the last topic, whatever has been present. So these are the key things which you have to take care. It is always advisable, whatever the latest. So just take a look, invest some time in the latest publication in your area, in your line of research. And if you see, where do the important authors in the field work, what is the history of that topic, what are the current interests, what are the various citations, so the key authors which have been repeatedly occurring, and the kind of journals which are publishing that particular topic. So it is always advisable to first look into that and then go towards performing the review. Now, these are few models. I'll be discussing two models, and because we have a limited time, so I want to introduce Biblio over here also. So just to mention, this is a simple model which will help you in reading the overall article. So this was a model which was given by Jessen et al. In 2011. He talks about ECA model, where E stands for examine or analyze the topic, evaluate or critique the topic, and make judgment about it, that this is correct, this is wrong, and this is missing. So though we are not that much learned that we can say that something is wrong, but based on the line of research and your study and your analysis, you can always point out that there is something which is missing. Then establishing the relationships between the topics, so there might be some antecedents, some consequences of the concept you are exploring, and the various variables which have been studied with your variable, with the variable which you are trying to explore. And towards the end, you perform a comparative and contrast the ideas, and then argue or against some of the some of the thoughts which you are not being persuaded from the point of view of the researcher. So you have to argue for or against the particular concept you are trying to explore. Researcher. So you have to argue. So if you think that everything is met, then continue. And if you think that there is you are missing on something and the answer is no, then just make a note of it and add it to the bibliography or the reference list you are making. So this is just the same thing, continuation. Now, this is something which can be followed, because as we know that everyone is occupied with a lot of work and a lot of mental work or has to be done when you are trying to research. And sometimes you go through the article, but it doesn't provide you the insights, or it might not be relevant. So this is a reading technique which all the researchers should follow. It talks about scanning, skimming, and understanding. What it says is scan the first reading. In the first reading, if you think that that article can be helpful, then absorb the overall message. If you don't, then move forward. You skim on the second reading, meaning you read more carefully. You talk about what is there, what is relevant, which can be helpful in your article. And then lastly, it talks about understanding in the third reading. So Why we are saying understanding in the third reading? Because you are trying to position your article. Hence, it is advisable, and it is always said that you try and find a sample paper which can help you in processing your thoughts. So I have given you one sample paper which I always refer whenever I am going for a systematic review. So every time whenever I am writing one, so I always look into the same thing. Now, this is the second model which you have to keep in mind. It only talks about looking into the authors or the introductory section, why the authors have decided to do the research, looking at the methods they have used, whether it was quantitative,
Excuse me,
qualitative.
ma'am.
Yes, yes, please.
Can you please explain the Tika model once again?
Okay, okay. Just this one, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is just to improvise our reading skills. It says try to examine from more than one perspective. So, for example, we have talked, we have shared two articles. We have seen two articles. One was on electronic word of mouth, and the other was one was on social commerce. So, when you were trying to examine and you were trying to read that, is there anything which can be done? For example, let's say when you were reading the social commerce topic, so now because we are looking at that article after 6 years, right? So can we analyze that topic from some other perspective also? For example, we have seen that social commerce was also helpful in the COVID times, right? So from healthcare perspective also, so you can analyze that particular topic from other angle also. It talks about establish the relationships and show how they are related. When you try and read the article, the other variables in what context they have been associated, that has to be taken into consideration. For example, some researcher might have already explored social commerce and the healthcare angle, but whether it was implemented in terms of pandemic or post pandemic, or in a vast or a diverse country like India, or let's say emerging nations or not, or developed nations or not. So you need to establish those relationships. You have to again and again question the same thing. Then comes the third point, that is talking about the evaluation or the critique part. Now when you try and evaluate or critique the idea, you have to make sure that there is certain judgment which you are reaching. What it means is that when you have read about it, for example, we said social commerce only, we reached a judgment that this topic came into picture in the year of 2010. That was the first time that definition came into picture, and after that it has developed so much. That is a judgment. Then you critically try and question the topic, meaning whether it was studied in other nation or maybe any other languages or not. So all these have to be done. Then comes the next or the last 2 points, that is comparing and contrasting the ideas. Comparing and contrasting. So, for example, one talks about social commerce and the other talks about social commerce and healthcare itself. Now, the way they would have positioned the article would be altogether different. So, that has to be understood by you, and then a new research direction, whether the same application or some third perspective can be employed. Now, over here, for example, the argue for or against something indicates the same research indication. So let's say till date, everyone has said that social commerce has always been helpful. But then we also see the dark side of social commerce where people have been cheated, and a lot of fake news have been appearing. So all those things you have to argue for or against the same thing. Now this becomes very important, and this will only come to limelight when you read an article, when you are critically looking at an article just to get something out of it. An outcome has to be achieved from reading that article. Is that clear? Any doubts around this?
Yes, ma'am, it's clear.
Okay, okay. So this was the model. So while, if you would have noticed that when I was sharing and we were trying to understand the article itself,
And can you explain the third reading also, ma'am?
uh, third reading, just to mention this one.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So I'll just give you an example. So let's say, yeah. So this was the article. We started on this note. So when I looked at this, the first thing came into my mind was that, okay, this is an article which is talking about sustainable development. This is something related to systematic review, and I am also doing the systematic review only. Yeah. So I am also doing this systematic review only. So this is scanning. Okay. So sorry for that. Yeah. So this is scanning. Now, when I just traversed it, so I looked at the purpose. I saw that, okay, fine, this is talking about themes. I looked at the design and methodology section. It is talking about the Web of Science database. It is talking about some software. And then it is also talking about in the findings, it is talking about ESG and the kind of relevance it has for the worldwide, with an emphasis on England, USA, Spain, etc. And then I moved further. So where in the limitations it is talking about that it had only 111 results. Now, originality is that it is improving the sustainability in universities. Now, when you just look at an article superficially and you look for some keywords which might hold relevance for your articles, that is scanning. You have just scanned, right? Now when you have looked at this, now you think that, okay, fine, this is good enough paper which can be helpful. So what you do is you move further, and just give me a moment, just a moment.
Priya, we will join till ma'am. We will wait till ma'am joins.
Yeah, sure, ma'am.
Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am, you
Yes,
are.
ma'am.
Okay, I am so sorry. Uh, so I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I think there is some internet issue because of which I have just, switched off my camera. So, so let's just continue. Okay, so well, I was explaining that scanning talks about that first you just refer to on a subliminal part that what is existing in that paper. So it will give you a brief overview of what that study is all about and how it is
Ma'am, your voice is
used for
breaking,
your
ma'am.
study. Voice is breaking.
Ma'am, your voice is breaking.
Okay.
Now it is clear, Tina ma'am.
Yeah. Now it is clear.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So, just to that scanning only talks about that when you overview an article and seek the relevance of a particular article towards your line of study. That is the scanning part. Then comes the skimming part. Now, skimming itself talks about that when you just acquire a bit further. For example, we talk about introduction, and in introduction, whether there are for certain areas which have been explored. So, for example, this study has been conducted based on the ESG framework only, and whenever there is a
Ma'am,
question
your
component
voice
of your
is
study, or
breaking. Voice is not clear, ma'am.
voice not clear.
Yeah, it's breaking
Okay,
often.
okay, just a moment. Yeah, I hope that now it is better.
Yes, ma'am.
Any
Yes, ma'am.
any better? Okay, I am
Yes, ma'am.
so sorry. I don't know. This is some unfortunate thing, right? I just expected internet connection, so that it'll so then as I was explaining that in and when you go for skim, you have to dig a bit deeper. You have to use primarily and towards the over here. So in this study refers to to address the topic, the use of Zotero and was assist in theoretical framework and analysis, obtain more specific data about the researchers, and this way it was possible to present a differentiative analysis. Now, when we say that uh, while going through the limitations, while going through conclusion section, have skimming gains. Example, now only about any other tool bring about normality in your
Tina
study.
ma'am, still I
Mental
think the
state
audio
is
is
also
not
required.
clear. Ma'am, sorry to interrupt. Your voice is again breaking. Dear participants, kindly let us wait for ma'am to resolve our issue. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah. So I have tried to fix it. I hope that it is better.
Yes, ma'am.
Better.
Very clear,
Okay.
ma'am, now.
I am
Yeah.
extremely sorry. There was some issue with the internet, right? Okay. So just where we I hope that it is visible.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. So this is what I was referring to, that it means about skimming the part. Now the third part is when you are trying to delve a bit more deeper, that is understanding in the third reading. Now what it means is that you have to explore the entire literature and the discussion of the article. What it talks about, sometimes researchers also indicate that these are the various opportunities wherein further the future researcher can also explore. For example, that these are the research opportunities. Many research opportunities can be identified considering the systematic literature review. RSL related to the application of ESG, so where in the context in which it has been applied, then where it can be utilized. So the research opportunity will be whether you can use it in promotion, in institutionalization, legitimization of ESG practices or not. So is there any article which you can write, or you can gather some data based on these three criteria to explore or to dig a bit deeper on this concept of sustainable development in higher education or in university setting itself? Then comes the other thing he has mentioned, or these authors have mentioned, particularly research on business or corporate sustainability. You can also try and dig into this area of business sustainability or corporate sustainability, and he have mentioned that it might provide certain determinants which can lead to successful application of this particular concept, or it might highlight the irregularities. Actually, all these issues which have been pointed out over here, if we can just look into that from a researcher's point of view, and the outcome would be that it will be helpful for the policy makers, for the future lot who are dealing with the workforce in the organizations, who are trying to come up with better possible solution to make more and more sustainable solution for the problems which are existing. So we have to, in the third stage, if you think that this article might be contributing to your review or to your research, then you go through the entire article. Otherwise, it is always advisable to only scan and skim. And if it is so concrete, so good that it can outrightly contribute to the study, then you dedicate nice amount of time to that particular article. So this is how it is expected out of the researchers. Now, this was the overall model of scanning, skimming, and understanding from the researcher's point of view, and how it will be beneficial. This was the IMRAD model, which we were saying that it is for reading primary research. So primary research, because you have to understand what has been dedicated by the authors, what has been highlighted in the introduction section, what has been indicated in the methods or the results section, and what has been discussed. So with what thought positioning, with what instances, with what support the author has substantiated their line of research. Now, it is also said that not all the three models might be experienced by everyone while reading and going through the research. So what is expected is you follow any model and try and note all the particular points which will be beneficial. You might highlight, you might make your own notes specific, which can be used by you in your study. So this was the question which was highlighted in the very beginning of the session, related to gray literature itself. So not all the literature. So there are various concepts, there are various terms which are still till date have not been explored much. And when they are not explored much, so we need to show, or we have to indicate that there is a research gap which is existing in that area. So with the help of any technical report which is there, published by any recognized body, any research report which has been present, or any working paper or any policy report, these documents can also act as a support to your research gap, to your research line which you are trying to contribute to. The gray literature is not formally published, so any news report, any analysis of articles, any print media, all these things, but coming from reliable sources. So for example, there is editorial section in which all the schema has been developed of the various ongoing discussions around that particular topic, etc. So all those things are, they are called as gray literature. Now there is one question which might come, that can we actually acknowledge this gray literature in our research? So I wanted to share one article with all of you. I hope that the screen is visible.
Yes, Teena ma'am, it is visible.
Yeah. Okay, so this is one article which is only talking about the gray literature and what an important resource it can be to systematic reviews. Because sometimes you might not see much of literature on the area in which you are trying to explore. So this is an article which itself says that gray literature can, in diverse formats and audiences, can present a significant challenge in a systematic search for evidence. And the benefit of including gray literature may far outweigh the cost in time. So what it is mentioning, that sometimes you might include, and sometimes the gray literature might also create new avenues wherein your systematic review can contribute. So this is one article which I'll be sharing with the Professor Amleshwari, and she, ma'am, would be sharing with all of you. I think Logeshwari also. So just to mention, this is the gray literature. These are the sources. Sources, if you take a look for gray literature, it is talking about, just to mention over here, it is talking about the gray literature in the diverse formats, audiences, how that can be, how you go for a gray search plan, can incorporate various search strategies. It might go for web searches. No. So all these things, it might be helpful. Sometimes it is also there on the Scopus, and sometimes you might try and explore it from Google itself. Now, ma'am, just to mention, Professor Amleshwari. Yes.
Yes, Teena ma'am.
Yeah, ma'am, just one thing. So I hope if there are any questions, they can post it in the chat box.
Yes,
And
sure.
I'll just give them a quick view of bibliometric.
Please go ahead, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
So before we move forward, if you have any query related to what we have discussed so far, kindly just post any question.
Participants, please make use of this opportunity to get your doubts cleared. Goklapriya, you can help madam in reading out the questions.
Yeah, sure, ma'am. And the first question is about the types of SLR.
Okay. Tried it. Okay. So just to mention, nowadays we are going through a lot of SLRs, and they itself, systematic reviews are generally in the narrative form. They are in the ways of synthesizing the theory. So there is one SLR which you might come forward with, or you might notice in terms of theoretical angle. Then there is another SLR which only talks about the kind of word map which have come into picture. So these are just the same thing. So there is another thing which is Prisma model. So all these are types of SLRs only. The basic philosophy of systematic literature review is itself that you have to follow those 6 steps, and then you can include whether you only want to go for a review which is talking about theoretical aspects only. There is one article which I would like to show you, just a moment. So just to help you. So this was an article which was published in 2008. And just to mention that there was another question related to grey literature also. There is a journal by the name International Journal of Management Review, which itself publishes only review articles. It is a journal which is dedicated to only the review articles. So there you will see, or you'll come to witness a lot of literature reviews, bibliometric reviews, meta-analysis reviews, meta-synthesis reviews, all those types of reviews. Now, this is one literature review which only talks about the theoretical aspects. So theoretical aspects means theoretical background only. So the temporary employment, it is itself talking about the kind of theories which have been published in this particular area. So this is a theoretical systematic review. If you take a look, so it gives explanations. This is a way of writing, but because nowadays we are only looking at the SLRs or the Prisma models or the bibliometric analysis. So it only talks about the same theoretical underpinnings and the way it has contributed to this research. There is another article which talks about the Prisma model, and because of the paucity of time, I'll quickly share it with you. So we know that Prisma is often asked, so this is another type of review. So if you take a look over here, systematic reviews, which itself talks about a systematic way to collate the overall information. And this is the, is it readable? Is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so just to mention, this is Prisma 2020 model. It talks about a lot of checklists which have been included. So it talks about the identifying the report as a systematic review, the kind of abstract. So you have to take into consideration what introduction, the rationale, the objective, etc. You have to talk about the method, so eligibility criteria, information sources, search strategy, selection process, data collection process, data items, if there was any bias assessment, so CMB was included. So they have just lengthened the same process to various checks and balances so that it can be more systematic in approach. It talks about effect measure, so whether they were talking about mean difference, correlation, any other synthesis which they have done, the kind of synthesis method, so whether they were have tabulated the study interventions, it was planned against certain groups, or how they have handled the data, how they have reported the missing summary statistics, if any data was missing, how they resolved that issue, if there was any method bias, how they have handled it, all those things. So it has to be mentioned in that particular synthesis method itself. Now, so this is the result section in which Prisma have indicated. So they gave on the website of Prisma, if you'll just write Prisma on Prisma 20 item checklist on Google, you will get a Word document which you can directly download also, right? And these are the checklist or checks which you have to incorporate while going for any systematic review. Now, just to mention, because we are running on time, so if you have any question post the session also, kindly share it with me, okay? And I'll be actually happy to respond to all the issues. Okay. So now there is one article which I wanted to share, and okay, just a moment. So please take a look. This is because now if we only go with SLR, so sometimes the reviewers, they often ask that why have you conducted only SLR, and there are new techniques which are coming into picture, so why have you not employed, or it would be advisable to employ such techniques, etc. So it is it is an article which I have shown and I have shared with you. This article itself talks about two things. They are performing SLR as well as they are performing a bibliometric review. Now, just to mention, in bibliometric review, we are going for, I'll just share the image, what has been done in this particular. So in the bibliometric analysis, they have talked about the areas. If you take a look, they have talked about the areas, the research questions were identified, and 6 indicators or divisions were created so that they can systemize the present literature review. They talked about the subject area in which the research has been conducted, the sources, the author references, authors, organizations, and countries. Apart from that, they have performed the analysis, and this is how they have reached it. So this is how keywords are important. So this is a keyword map which they have created with the help of VOS viewer analysis software. And what they have found is that there are primarily 4 clusters which have come into picture. The ones which are connected with red, so it is showing that higher education, knowledge, science, policy, etc. Then there is blue one which is coming into picture, that it is talking about university, the indicators related to sustainability, management, framework, etc. Then there is third cluster which has been highlighted by green relationships. So it is talking about higher education, business, corporate governance, corporate social responsibility, and then there is this yellow framework which is talking about corporate social responsibility performance. So based on the keyword analysis, they have got to know that there are 4 clusters in the overall research area of sustainability in higher education. This is the other now in this they have conducted a bibliographic review, bibliocoupling, and based on that they have just found a relationship between the main publications and journals. So they have, if you could just see, there is Journal of Environmental Studies, Sustainability, Journal of Cleaner Production, International Journal of Sustainability, International Journal of accounting, etc. Again, there were 4 clusters which have been highlighted in this: red, green, yellow, and blue again. Now, this is just yeah. So there is some okay. So there is a question related to what are the limitations of SLR. Now, just to mention, sometimes the first limitation is that sometimes when we are performing a literature review and we are often going for one or the other database, what happens, sometimes we lose on very reliable literature, very reliable articles and reliable journals. Now, for that, it is always advisable to at least go for some holistic databases. So I have given certain example like Scopus, Web of Science, but then there would be articles which are only published in Science Direct and might not be included in Web of Science journals. So it becomes very important to include more and more databases so that you can be more and more holistic. The other thing is, sometimes while trying to become more niche in approach and more focused in approach, we tend to rule or tend to lose the essence of the overall research. So always there has to be some applicability of the research you are conducting, because whatever researchers are doing, it is a link which we are trying to create between policy and the practical application of that policy. So based on the research findings itself, they will be contributing. So hence it becomes very important. Okay. So any other question?
I think,
Yeah, there is.
Dr. Teena, there was one more question, like how to download that viewer and how to download free papers.
Okay. So for free papers, we. I mean, that's a tricky question. So, but then again, just to mention, sometimes if you'll go to Google Scholar, there are, towards the right hand side, there are always other links which are given. So when you click on them, they create a proxy, and via that you can refer that. And the other thing is that we have already, there was one article which I was reading about the same thing, that is SkyHub, right? So but then again, the latest publication would not be there, and it is also not advisable to go through that. So that is one of the things. Otherwise also you can because it's one fraternity and everyone is working for contributing something to the overall welfare of the society. So even if you find that you cannot access the articles, you can always refer and build more connections and just ask them for help. So everyone would be happy to help, right? So they can also download the articles and then share it with you. Okay. So yeah. And apart from that, this was related to the articles. Apart from that, if you are looking for WAS viewer, so if you'll just click, yes, I'll share it. I'll share it. Okay, just to mention, if you just write on Google WAS viewer free download, so you can directly download from there and you will get Mac version or Windows version, etc. So this is an easily available software which will help you in performing bibliometric analysis also. Yes. Any other question? If some source reference is missing after we include as it. Yes. So for that, we have to follow the APA format. Then the only process is that manually doing it. You have to open the article and go through the page numbers, the volume and everything. So that is a lengthy process, but that's the reliable process. Even sometimes Google Scholar does not give us the entire citation. So we have to open the article and then go for it. Okay. Yeah. So how to do keyword mapping? Yeah, you can use RStudio also. Yeah, you can use RStudio also. So I think, ma'am, next one has to be on RStudio.
Yes, Teena, we are touching upon our studio
Okay,
by one Mr. Dinesh, Dr. Dinesh. So we are
okay,
touching upon that.
okay, fine. Yes. So RStudio can also be used for the same thing. There are a lot of softwares actually which are coming in the market. So like Jiffy is one. So you would refer to a lot of network maps which are which you might come across in your in the research articles. So that is another software. What it does, it just takes out the data from what boss viewer has, and from there you have to again go to Jiffy and create your own notes. But the only thing is that everything has to be done manually, so you have to create the entire database data sheet by yourself. Then only it will process the entire information. So there is not no shortcut for that, right? So the way Scopus and WAS has helped us, that won't be there. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So I think Mr. Paul also has a question: how to do keyword mapping? Yeah, I'll just show you one quick, ma'am. I'll take 1 minute, and then right.
Sure, Teena, you can go ahead.
Okay, just a moment.
Yes, Mr. Paul, your question is being answered. Ma'am is sharing a screen.
Ma'am, can I talk?
Yeah,
Yes,
please.
yes, please.
Okay. Ma'am, I'm doing a research on digital marketing. The problem is when I do the systematic literature review, always there is a problem with like what is my originality and contribution, which is always a big question when I do this literature review, and because we need to find a gap or what is the thing. The second question, ma'am, I quickly the keyword for my thesis, for my research, I need to do a keyword mapping. I'm really confused when I wanted to do keyword mapping on those things. How do I pick up the keywords which is related to my subject area, research area? Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, so I'll start answering from the last question. So when you are saying keywords, so I gave you a simple. This is a simple technique. So when you read through the articles which are related to digital marketing itself, I have shared that a lot of researchers, because it is a mandatory thing that we are supposed to give the keywords, try and make a note of what are the repetitive keywords which have been utilized by the researchers. Now, because ideally a keyword should be such that it should occur most. So if I have to look for any study, I should write that keyword and it should show that Mr. Paul has conducted a research in that area. So repetitive, right? The frequency of repetition of any keyword which has occurred in the articles which you have gone through related to your research, that will help you in shortlisting the keywords. It is not advisable to come up with new and new keywords, right? Reason being, the visibility would reduce, right? So always any research, if you want to make it more and more visible, it is simple that you go for any keyword which is relatable. For example, if I write just a simple example, if I write Indian study, it has more chances of visibility as compared to if I write Indian subcontinent, right? Because it is a repetitive keyword which we have used. Now, the other question, when you are saying digital marketing, right? Now, digital marketing itself is a very broad thing, and we see a lot of related work which has been done, and every day some of the other understanding. Now, as I said, that narration and positioning becomes a crucial component of how you are presenting your article. So that has to be focused. For example, it is advisable, if you come across certain articles, they always very beautifully they write that this study covers or tries to highlight or resolve two main problems, and then they beautifully mention the first problem and the second problem, right? So how your study will contribute, that has to be indicated in the very first section of your research. It is also there, if you can make it a point that you highlight it in the abstract itself, because many a time the articles gets desk rejected because none of the novelties have been shared in the abstract, right? So it is also one of the things which you can do. Now, I hope two questions I have answered. What was the third one? I just completely forgot, sorry.
Mr. Paul?
Yes, ma'am. I was
Yeah.
talking about one was keyword that you fantastically told, ma'am. Second one is what is my originality and contribution. So when I do the end of the when I read all the articles, when I pick up the articles per particular subject, and then I go on writing the literature review. But when it comes to my originality, what is the again the social impact or social contribution? There also I get stuck because sometimes it will be marketing oriented, sometimes it is like organization oriented. So the journals expect those things, especially those emerald, those
Yes.
journals.
Yes, so Emerald always have this section of originality, right? So just by reading, and this is how during my research journey, how I have learned is when they talk about originality and when they talk about the contribution. So if, for example, there is any theory which is existing that is supporting your research, what you're trying to do, or the kind of relationships you are trying to explore, what you need to do is how you are bringing that new perspective. So for example, how a theory can be applied in digital marketing itself. For example, like nowadays we see a commonly used model is SOR model, right? But how an SOR model can be expanded based on the digital marketing concept itself, right? So with what perspective you are explaining, that becomes the novelty. So you are adding to that existing theory, but you are adding from a third perspective. So the positioning has to be such that will be the originality can never be because you conducted a study in so and so country. Originality cannot be that till date every study has been done on other things but not this thing. It has to have a sound base, that why this study will add, whether there will be, as you yourself mentioned, whether there will be social implications or not. So how it will add to those social implication, whether it will contribute to the policy making or not. So all those things have to be highlighted. That is how you can position your paper, and that will add to the originality itself. This is simple thing. So just one example, like general tendency is that independent variables can never be the demographics, right? Demographics cannot act as independent variables. But when you try and say, so there might be not many researches which have been conducted, so it is simple the way you explain it. So when you go for the explanation part, that yes, it can also act, and why you are saying that, how you will be creating it as a traversing thing, that will provide the novelty to your research. So there is one very beautiful article, that age differences in happiness, right? So you can also refer to that. So these are the things which are bringing novelty to the research. So I hope that I have to an extent answered the question. Okay.
Mr. Paul? Yes, I think he has messaged us.
Ma'am, it was an
Okay.
excellent, yeah.
Okay. And just towards the last thing, I hope that time allows, and I hope that, yeah.
Yes,
So
please.
can you see the screen?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so this is the VOS viewer window pane, right? I'll just give you a quick view. So it is simple. There will be certain tabs towards the left hand side wherein it is writing create, open, and some would be not active. And then there would be manual and about VOS viewer, etc. So we have to go to create, and because this is just fast track and I don't want to leave any question unanswered, you need to choose create a map based on bibliographic data and then move forward. So as I mentioned that bibliographic data will take on Web of Science, Scopus, Lens, PubMed, or any data which is in the format of EndNote, reference works, RIS, etc., etc. All these are different types of formats based on which the VOS viewer will work. So let's say because I have Scopus data, so I'll select read data from bibliographic database. I'll move forward. So there was a file. Wait. So I've selected one data file. So if you could take a look, choose type of analysis and counting method. And I'm going for bibliographic coupling or co-citation. You can choose anything. So let's say co-occurrence, because he asked a question how to go for keyword map. So I have chosen co-occurrence and I am using all keywords. Now this is a difference between author keywords and index keyword. Index keywords are the keywords which have been repeatedly used, right? And author keywords are, for example, I have added those keywords to my article, but they might not actually be related to the overall theme of the article. So I have chosen all keywords, and so it shows minimum number of occurrence of a keyword. I have just given 5. You can change it, right? It says that there are 245 keywords which have repeatedly occurred, right? It will give you a list. Now when I'll finish it, can you see? This is how it has created. Was the screen visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So this is how the keyword has appeared, the network analysis between different keywords. This is the density visualization of how the various types of keyword has occurred. So this is just a simple thing. Okay. So I hope that I have answered. Yeah.
Thank you, Dr. Teena. It was really an excellent session. Even no, it is like we have crossed the time by 24 minutes and 30 minutes, and we are very lovely to see all the participants patiently waiting to listen to you on questioning. Very interactive session. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you so
Now,
much, ma'am.
yes, moving on to Gokula Priya to render your vote of thanks.
Yes. Thank you, ma'am, for all the valuable insights and your thoughtful information. It has been such a great honor to be a part of this wonderful event. I'd like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed guest, Dr. Teena Bharti, Assistant Professor in IIM Bodh Gaya, who enlightened us with your motivational and interactive session. I'm grateful to all the committee members, and it is not joy that makes us grateful, it is gratitude that makes us joyful. Thank you all for making this event successful. And the link for feedback and attendance for today's session is shared in the chat box. I kindly request everyone to take a few minutes to fill them up. And submitting the feedback and attendance is mandatory for issue of certificate. Thank you all and have a great night ahead.
Ma'am, how about a group pic, ma'am?
Yes, for sure. Dear participants, please switch on your cameras. We will share the link once again in the FDP WhatsApp group. Lokeshwari, are you clicking a pic?
Yes, ma'am. Done, ma'am.
Yes. Thank you so much. And my heartfelt thanks to Lokeshwari and my other partner, faculty members. They took very much care in hosting today's event and the upcoming 4 days. Congratulations, Team School of Management, DG Vaishnav College.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Dear participants, we are sharing the Google feedback form in the WhatsApp group also. Lokeshwari, are we sharing the form in the Google form in the WhatsApp?
Yes, ma'am. I'll do, ma'am. I'll do, ma'am.
Because many people are texting that they are
Yes,
unable
ma'am.
to
Sure.
open.
Sure, ma'am.
Thank you, Lokeshwari.
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, Aarti. Thank you, Deepika. Thank you, Ansi, Nandika, Jeevita. Take care.